Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Zia, a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Today I'd like to talk to all of you who feel or may have felt, or maybe right now at this very point, you're feeling like you're failing your gender transition. You feel like you're failing your gender and ultimately feel like you're failing yourself. This feeling of failure, I hear, is a very common among individuals, especially when you're just starting out. And it doesn't even matter if for you, gender transition is just simply social transition and nothing more than that, or if it's only medical transition, such as hormones, or if you actually decided that gender affirming surgeries are something that are going to help you alleviate gender dysphoria. Whatever you consider in terms of gender transition, there is a period that comes for a lot of people when they start feeling like they're failing at it, like they're failing their own gender transition and failing their own gender. And I want to address this feeling of failure because I see this a lot. And when I hear a lot of people vocalize it, I feel that they're being incredibly hard on themselves and unfairly so. And I want to shed some light on it and explain to you why you may be feeling the way you do and give you some of the tips along the way to help you be motivated and to help you stay the course and to help you move forward. So here's the thing. One of the biggest, hugest reasons why a lot of you may feel like you're failing your gender transition is because you're not supposed to know what the heck you're doing. You're not. I'm sorry, but you're not. A lot of you are just not supposed to know what you're doing, especially if you're not working with a gender therapist. You're not going to know which steps to take first. If you're doing things by yourself, it may be confusing. And when you start looking for information on the internet, a lot of times you can get two very contradictory things at the same time. So it can be very difficult to take those steps forward. On top of that, when it comes to figuring out a way to express your gender, figuring out a way to show up in the world and communicate to the world the gender identities that you see on the inside and to express it outwardly can be hard too, because again, you're not supposed to know what the heck you're doing. It is akin to step into a completely new territory for a lot of you. You may have spent all of your life, starting from childhood, feeling this authenticity to authentic gender, but learning how to express it and how to navigate the world and how to show up leading with a gender identity is not easy. And it takes practice. And it takes practice to figure out how you want to also your gender identity to be expressed. A lot of trans women I work with feel so hard on themselves when they can't get the makeup right, can't get hairstyles right, can't get clothing styles right. Again, even right, the word right is so subjective, right? But what I feel is a lot of people tend to look to other women in terms of styles and looks and to aspire to, which is normal and natural. But the truth is, nobody just wakes up one day knowing how to do cat eye eyeliner or how to perfectly apply bold red lips. Still practicing. I have lots of Q-tips on my desk, by the way. Nobody wakes up with a sense of style. Nobody wakes up knowing how to express their masculine identity or non-binary identity fully in the world. Some people, sure, naturally have inclination. They're naturally predisposed to knowing how to do certain things. But for majority of us, myself included, we're going to have to learn. And learning takes time, and it's a process. And as you learn, there are going to be moments when you're going to screw up, when you're going to mess up, and it's going to feel that you're failing at your gender identity, or you're failing at your gender transition because of the instances you're going to mess up. But you need to realize that's supposed to know. It's a new territory. And anybody who starts to learn how to navigate the world in their own gender starts somewhere too. So that's the most important thing I want you all to realize, is that you're not supposed to know. You're really not. Nobody gives you a manual. There's no such manual as here's the gender transition manual, because each one of you is so different and each one of you have a different way of expressing and showing up in the world, and you need to figure out what that is for you, and that may take time. It may take a long time to find yourself. It's not going to happen overnight. So this is one of the main reasons why a lot of you may feel like you're failing yourself. Now, one of the tips that I have for you is from the get-go, from the beginning, to set up realistic ideal that you aspire to. Now, I have heard so many different ideals that people express. And, a lot of times, I gotta say, it's not a very realistic. When I say realistic, I mean realistic in a sense of actually how probable is it to achieve the ideal that you set up for yourself, given your circumstances, such as where do you live, how safe it is, how supportive is the environment, what is your access to resources, what kind of gender affirming care is around you, how good is the gender affirming care around you, what is your current financial situation like? Do you have really good insurance? If not, do you have really good financial backbone to fall on in order to go through, if surgeries is going to be something that you're interested in, to go through gender affirming surgeries with a really good doctor? Those things are really, really important. All of those things are going to be important. So it's important to take your ideal and then also root it, situate it in your circumstances. A lot of times people don't situate their circumstances in the ideal and then they struggle. I mean, they don't situate their circumstances in their reality and they struggle. Not every doctor is going to be an amazing surgeon. Not every medical provider is going to know what the hell they're doing with hormones. So your context and circumstances are going to be incredibly important in grounding your aspirations in. But I do want you to have aspirations. I just want you to have them more grounded in reality, because that's going to help you a lot, a lot. Now, the next tip that I have for you, beyond setting a very realistic expectation, is make sure that you don't compare yourself to anybody else. Your biggest competition should be you. Your biggest competition should be the person staring back at you in the mirror. That person is you. That person is not somebody else on the internet who may have especially started gender transition at the exact same time you did. And now you're watching them and you say, what the heck? How come they seem to be so far ahead? Look how quickly their body changes. All you know, those people are using camera filters and they look amazing. I mean, like, look how great this high definition makes my skin look flawless. Not that flawless. It looks that way. So you have to make sure you don't compare yourself to other people, because you don't know their circumstances, access to resources, environment. You don't know in what real context their ideal aspirations are being situated in. You also don't know how their body tends to metabolize hormones if they're on hormones. When you start comparing yourself to somebody else, you start tearing yourself apart, because that negative voice in your head starts to nag and talk to you and drag you down and play that comparison game. And dysphoria loves playing the comparison game. Your biggest competition is you. Tip number 3, or is it is tip number 3, right? Tip number 3 for all of you, very, very important, is to stop, please stop measuring your success based on where you have to go. When you measure your success, where you at and where you yet have to go, it's not fair. The best way to measure your success is backwards to where you started. Start looking backwards to very first day when you started, to where did you start? When did you start questioning your gender? And look how far you've gone and where you're at right now. That's the best way to measure your success. That's the best way to include all of that trajectory in it. That's the best way to be kind to yourself and to consider and to fairly appraise the compounding interest of all of the work you've done. Don't forget, a lot of work you're putting into your gender transition could be compounding drip by drip. It may not seem like it's making any changes. You may not feel like you are experiencing any changes at all, because they're so small, they haven't accumulated enough yet to start leading to drastic lasting results that you finally are able to see. but you have to still keep going. You have to trust that the compounding effect is going to take place. But please make sure you do measure your success backwards, not forwards. Those are my 3 biggest tips for you. And the most important overreaching theme is to remember that a lot of you are not meant to know what the hell you're doing. A lot of this is going to be very confusing, from deciding which gender affirming surgery to have first, if that something is for you, to figuring out how and when to come out at work, to figuring out when to change your name, to figuring out when to start self-disclosing, to figuring out when you can start presenting and how far you should push that envelope. All of the things are meant to be unknown. It's meant to be a process. There is never going to be a manual. There are books written on gender transition, how to go through gender transition, and here you start with social and, in that type of language, but they're all very generic. None of them are going to give you a clear, concise way of moving forward. Only you can, because you know yourself best. You know your circumstances best. You know your environment best. So if you feel like you're failing at your gender transition and failing at your gender identity, and feel like therefore you're failing at yourself, I want you to realize you're not failing. It may feel like you're failing, but you're not failing. You may feel lost. Lost is a better way of describing it. Confused. Kind of like the person in the dark looking for that flashlight. But you're not failing. And you're meant to make mistakes because, again, you don't know what you're doing. There's going to be a lot of mistakes on the way. And you're meant to take those mistakes as learning signposts and learn from them versus beating yourself down. If anybody's out there who's claiming they had a very amazing full sales without any kind of upheavals, gender transition, it's because they're also not sharing that they probably had an amazing team behind them, full of gender therapists and amazing surgeons and doctors and stylists and you name it. You name it. And those people who have access to all of that is not that common. For a lot of the rest of the individuals, it's going to be work. You know how people say gender transition is work? Because it is work. It's stepping into unknown territory and trying to find your belonging in the territory and how you want to show up and how you want to be seen for yourself. And that takes time. So I wish all of you to stop feeling like you're failing. You're not failing. Start looking backwards where you started to look at all the success you have achieved. And recognize a lot of times you're not supposed to know what you're doing. And that's okay. It is a new territory for you. Just like anything new in life you start with is going to be a new territory for you. Anything. And then once you learn it, it's there. That information is there with you forever. So comment below, let me know, do you feel like you're failing sometimes? Do you feel right now like you're failing your gender transition and ultimately failing your gender identity? If so, what's happening? Share with all of us. Comment below, let me know. Love reading all of your comments, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.